As the offseason rolls along, it's time to consider what the biggest remaining questions are for each team. We're focusing on the NFC today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
Yes.
We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins.
Yes.
And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the NFL on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Joseph, I am thinking that was that last year's draft cap that you're wearing today?
Yeah, I got to get the last few opportunities out of the way because my new one arrives tomorrow.
Imagine having a draft cap that you would actually wear in public. Must be nice.
Well, you've already told me that you don't like this hat. Like, you didn't like last year's draft hats.
There was potential with that design, but when your team constantly uses the wrong combination of color wheel, it doesn't look good.
Yeah. Are you in on this year? I think this year's
No.
phenomenal. I think it's one of the best hats
No.
they put out. What?
I would never wear that hat.
What?
Sorry, I haven't had a wearable draft hat in a long time. I actually think somewhere in this room, I have the last draft hat that I had from 5 years ago. It's been a very long time.
Well, when you have hair like you're not really looking for something to enhance your head, right? And for me, not really a good hair situation, so I'm always looking for a new hat to hide what's going on up top.
The year 2023, and we're talking about Kyle having feasible and wanting to show hair. What a time to be alive.
The glow up has been
the haters are furious. So let's get into the NFC. The first wave of free agency is generally perceived to be over. A lot of the big money spending has happened. A lot of the dust has settled. Players that are generally still out there, you probably get the sense they're trying to feel out how they can maximize their markets. Teams maybe not wanting to overcommit versus having the opportunity with the draft coming up to make other additional investments into their roster. So kind of in a holding pattern, which makes now a great time to go through the conferences. We, on Monday, did the AFC, and then the Lamar Jackson stuff flared up, so we pushed the NFC to today, and now we're going to do it here and now, starting with the NFC East is our plan, Joe.
All right. Do you want to go first? Or how do we...
I'll go first, and I'll say this, and I know that we're going to start with the Commanders. And you've already made this acknowledgement in the pre-show, but shout out to the NFC East for being the one division that's full of rosters that have meaningful or reasonable NFL talent to just about every position group across all four teams. Because we got some goofy position groups that we're going to be going through here in the next 30 minutes.
Good way to put
really goofy, these guys are the best you have kinds of observations when going through these rosters. We already had free agency. There's guys that were available to be signed to help you here.
You didn't have to be here.
Right. We didn't have you chose to be here. And we're going to get into them, but we're going to start with the Commanders. And don't get mad at me, Joe. But when I look at this roster, the number one thing that stands out that needs to be addressed is the tight end position in my mind. I look at Logan Thomas, John Bates, Cole Turner, Amari Rodgers, and I understand Bates, Turner, and Rodgers were added in the last 24 months to the roster. They're not answers long term, so let's not pretend like we are. And we know who Logan Thomas is at this point, a former quarterback who's playing tight end. So why don't we get a tight end who's playing tight end and actually add an element to Eric Bieniemy's offense that is going to continue to make this more challenging to defend?
Why were you apologizing to me? Was it the Logan Thomas piece of it?
No, just
okay.
I didn't know if that was going to be an inflammatory take to you or not. I know for some it is, but
no, I don't have any problems with that. I think it's a good observation on something that Washington needs, especially as they enter an interesting transition with their offense, obviously with Eric Bieniemy, who's used to having Travis Kelce, Sam Howell, your starting quarterback, some new pieces on the O-line. There's a lot to work together there. I think the tight end would absolutely help. I'll give you a different answer, though. I think this team really needs to figure something out at corner. And with corner, you have Kendall Fuller and Benjamin St-Juste as your projected outside guys, Danny Johnson as your slot player. I think whether it's an outside guy or an inside guy, if you get an outside guy, you can move Kendall Fuller to the slot, and I think that might be a better spot for him anyways. Or you can just get another slot player. But I think as a team that's going to run base nickel, you need to upgrade what you have there at either slot or outside corner, with Kendall Fuller being your pivot player if you need it.
No love for potentially Percy Butler developing as a third safety to take some of that?
You and I need to have a conversation about
Percy Butler.
No, not about Percy Butler, but
safeties versus corners.
You have a bigger appetite for
big nickel.
Yes,
yeah,
than I do.
Don't you technically play big nickel?
I don't know. You saying the Bills? Taron Johnson. I mean,
he's technically is he?
You look at him as a big nickel
corner, right?
I look at him as a regular slot corner.
Okay. I don't know.
I like the idea of having both. And for
tomato,
the Bills, maybe
tomato,
that,
chocolate.
No,
it's all the same.
80% of the people, 80% of the people have spoken. You are outrageous with your criticism towards the way I say chocolate.
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 Yeah.
Chocolate.
So did you think I was saying it the top one?
I still don't know what I say. I think I say chocolate.
Okay.
What do I say?
We're not gonna do a chocolate bit again. We've done one team. We're 7 minutes in. We gotta go.
Giants. Big blue.
New York Giants. I wanted to say linebacker, but I watched the film of that offense, and that interior offensive line needs help. So I understand you drafted Ezeudu in the third round last year, and Mark Lewinsky's been a feasible NFL player in the past, but if you're going to make Daniel Jones work, you have to, for what you've invested to pay him, you damn well better put some money on that side of the football. You damn well better put more draft resources on that side of the football. So I got IOL as the top need remaining for the Giants.
Yeah, no question. That's what I have down as well. Looking at this offensive line, I know that we're all optimistic for Evan Neal and his growth as a player, but there's one starter on this offensive line that I actually feel good about. Now, it's Andrew Thomas, who's developed into one of the better offensive linemen in the game, but I got 4 spots that I am really uneasy about, and I don't know how they're going to be able to do it to really find the upgrades necessary, but they got to start somewhere and get some talent here into the middle of that offensive line.
Okay, so we have the Dallas Cowboys next.
Eagles.
Okay, so I just went out of order when I collected them. Oh, that's why I skipped them all together. I have my notes here, and then I also have the R-Lads up for notes as we're working our way through. And I didn't put Philly in because I know them very well, so I didn't have to look at their R-Lads to make sure I was not forgetting anything obvious. He's a linebacker, right?
Maybe.
Nakobe Dean, how many snaps did he take last year?
I think like 10.
Okay, so 10 snaps there. What are your thoughts on Nicholas Moreau right now?
Listen, I hear you. Go ahead.
How about Sean Bradley, Christian Ellis, Davion Taylor? That's the linebacker room. That's it. So yes, you can address other areas on this roster, but you can't tell me it's a bigger need for the Eagles than what they have available to play linebacker.
To give something different, I'll bring up safety. Losing Marcus Epps and C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Reed Blankenship disrespect will not be tolerated on this show.
Reed
we even have Middle Tennessee State brand colors here on the video feed.
And Terrell Edmonds, those are your safeties. I don't love that.
Justin Evans, Kayvon Wallace, come on, man.
Right. And I'd say running back is also, Kenneth Gainwell, Rashad Penny, if he stays healthy, which is the massive if.
Will not be tolerated on this podcast.
The guy's hurt all the time, man. So the Eagles got some stuff to work on here as the reigning NFC champions.
Linebacker. Final answer for the Dallas Cowboys. I have 2 written down. I feel like we feel good enough about Jake Ferguson as a complimentary player that I'm not inclined to put tight end down, but it was on my short list. We still got to do more with this interior defensive line, right? And I'm sitting here looking at Neville Gallimore and Oso Odigizua and Chauncey Golston and Quentin Bohanna. These are the guys that are credited as being your top interior defensive linemen, and technically the only ones on the roster unless you find some positional versatility with somebody else that you don't have right now, because I'm looking at what your offseason roster looks like. And yeah, you did the thing where you spent 3 third-round picks in a 2-year stretch on these guys, but I don't know. I just feel like that's been... And Odigizua has been a promising splash player. But they went after the kid John Ridgway from Arkansas last year, and he was off the roster by like October. Getting a player like that on this roster, I think, would really help. And I don't want to just assume a 6th-round pick in Quentin Bohanna, who's that big body type, is going to be it. Joe has written down, slightly off-center in my camera. Needs to go more to... There you go. Mozzie Smith, no matter what.
Come on, that's got to be the pick for Dallas.
That'd be an excellent... That's exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, outstanding pick for Dallas. And the end of the first round?
Yeah, pick 26 is where they're at. So
why don't they trade back to 51 and draft him 51 so Miami can get Darnell Washington?
Well, that's funny because the other thing I had interior defensive line tight end written down. So Jake Ferguson.
That's the 2 that I had too.
And for Dallas, I think picking at 26 is great for either, right? I think they could be in good position to get one of those tight ends, Michael Mayer or Darnell Washington. Mozzie Smith, certainly a possibility there as well. So I think the needs line up with where I think good value will be for Dallas at pick 26. So we see that very similarly. Folks, we got a lot more to talk about here. The NFC North and all the rest of the divisions are coming up. But first, I need to tell you about FanDuel. The NCAA tournament, of course, is heating up. Now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
I think we've reached our first unserious position group for an NFL roster.
I hope we got the same thing because
the Chicago Bears.
I have some notes here. Is it my turn to go first?
It is your turn to go first.
Okay. So
I just wanted to get us out of the FanDuel, so go ahead and get on your soapbox here, but please tell me that we're on the same page, because I looked at one specific position group for this team and I said, what are we doing?
Yeah, I have Bears. Looking at my notes, I'll give them to you verbatim. Bears, D-line, 4 backups as starters. Travis Gibson, Justin Jones, Andrew Billings, Dom Robinson. Those are 4 backups. You got to find some impact here with this defensive line, especially with what you've invested in your linebackers and TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds. Big dollar guys on the second level. You need to give them a chance to be able to play with some better talent up in front of them.
Yeah, I had specifically the edge group is just unserious. Travis Gibson, Dom Robinson, who I understand was a promising rookie last year, and that's great, but 5th-round rookie. DeMarcus Walker, Terrell Lewis, and Jerry Green.
Can't do it.
Shout out, by the way, to Virginia Cavaliers legend Andrew Brown.
Yeah, sticking around. I noticed that, studying that this morning.
I was like, hey, he's still there.
You know who else I saw on a depth chart recently was Rennell Wren. Remember, out of Arizona State?
Yes.
That guy's still out
tackle?
there.
Still out there?
Still out there, man. Still trying to make it work.
Man, good for him.
Yeah.
Okay, so next is the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, for the Packers, I have pass catchers, man. Like Jordan Love, finally he's going to get his chance to be the team's quarterback. And he's rolling out there with Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Samari Toure as your top 3 receivers, and Josiah DeGuara at tight end. Like, I know there's some promising young talent there, but can we give Jordan Love a real chance here and give him some more to work with in this receiver core / tight end situation?
This team's going to pound the rock. The two backs that they have, big bodies up front, cold weather team, these wide receivers are going to run the ball and take shots. I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. I would say tight end is the most. Deguara, Tyler Davis, Nick Gugamos, and Austin Allen. In a perfect world, based off what we've seen from Josiah Deguara thus far in his NFL career, he is a tight end blank in the NFL.
To me, he's a
3.5.
Right. Special teams, move him around a little bit, but as your primary player?
Not even as your 2.
Right.
It's an unserious group. The trend continues.
All right, we are on the Detroit Lions. We got a little better situation here. But I think for the Lions, I'd like to see an interior defensive line upgrade here. Someone to play next to Aleem McNeil, who's looking like a nice young player out of NC State. But Levi Onwuzurike has just not really developed. He's been inconsistent. There's been injuries. And so I just don't think you can count on him. I know John Comiskey's a nice player, but you like him a little bit more as a 5. So another true interior presence alongside Aleem McNeil, I think, is probably where they can make the greatest impact with an upgrade.
I made the election not to write tight end down again, but I very easily could have, because Brock Wright, Shane Zylstra, James Mitchell, and Derek Deese are your top tight ends. In a perfect world, Brock Wright is a tight end blank in the NFL.
2. I kind of like Brock Wright.
You do like Brock?
Yeah, like as a depth player. Yeah, but not as a starter. I would agree. He's not a starting caliber tight end.
Okay. I wrote down edge. I know you drafted Pascal. I know you brought back Kaminsky, who's still a little bit more of a hybrid type player. I don't think he's a true edge guy. But okay, and I'll even give Pascal the benefit of the doubt of putting him in the same bucket as Kaminsky. Kind of a hybrid defensive lineman type. How many true outside pass rushers do you have on this roster?
James Houston, I think he had 47 sacks last year on 50 plays.
Right, and he played 50 plays. It's not sustained.
Aiden Hutchinson?
He played 120 snaps.
Hutchinson,
total.
Houston, Pascal?
Listen
Aquara?
to yourself. Listen to yourself.
That's not terrible.
It's a testament to what the rest of this roster has become in a very short amount of time. But I'm thinking about Detroit's trying to win this damn division. And they can win this division. So what do you need to do that? Not, we got a black hole at tight end. Y'all are trying to win playoff games this year. And how do you do that? You need more. My 3 paperclip sample size of James Houston is not enough for me to say, yeah, we're good. I'm sorry.
But it's not just James Houston. It's Pascal. It's
Pascal's
Aquara.
a hybrid. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt of being an inside-outside hybrid defensive lineman. True outside pass rush threats. I'm surprised you mentioned Charles Harris, too, who had like 6 sacks.
Yeah, he's really come alive.
Yeah, he's really lived up to that 22nd overall pick.
Hey, it just took a little time.
A lot of time.
They got bodies.
They've got bodies. What a high bar to clear. They got bodies. I'm sorry. Give me another pass rusher on this roster ASAP.
All right, Minnesota Vikings, I have cornerback. I like Andrew Booth. I like Caleb Evans. I don't like that as my starting outside cornerbacks right now. Both guys young, entering year 2, if I'm not mistaken, for both players. Byron Murphy's a nice addition probably as a slot guy, but I'd like to have something else there in addition to Booth and Evans at outside cornerback.
This is the upset of the century. You didn't write defensive tackle down?
Well, it's this Flores defense, right? Like,
yes.
It's like gap control.
Yes.
So like I surveyed their personnel and it's like
Harrison Phillips, Kyrus Tonga, James Lynn's gonna be a nightmare in this system with the lack of length that he has. Jonathan Bullard.
Dean Lowry? I don't know. To me, it's about just have some guys there, and then you have these Danielle Hunter, Zadarius Smith, Marcus Davenport, DJ Wanham, just kind of slashers to go with it.
Zadarius Smith's going to be a monster in this scheme. He's going to feast. I hope Danielle Hunter's healthy. And they signed Marcus Davenport on the 1-year deal. So they got some options on the outside, but I'm looking at the guys on the inside. Dean Lowry did take a step back this year for Green Bay. Pretty significant step back. So I looked at what you had as your interior three when you're going to run your traditional three or three-man front, odd front, 5 on the line of scrimmage. That group ain't doing it for me. But I do agree with you, especially with in the spirit of who is calling the defense. It's going to be a bumpy ride for these outside corners right now.
Oh, by the way, like it's Justin Jefferson and KJ Osborne at receiver. I mean, I know Blake Prohl's there. I would hate to overlook him, but
they got Hawk and Josh Oliver.
I think another receiver certainly
is necessary.
Right.
Yes, I would agree with you. They'll be busy with their first couple picks. They're gonna have to. They ideally need an impact player on all 3 of the spots that we just mentioned.
Right, and it's like
to live up to what they did last year.
Can we really talk about a quarterback succeeding Kirk Cousins on day 2? Like, are they really the Hendon Hooker team with those needs?
No, I don't think. I don't think they are. It's a good call.
All right, let's get a couple of NFC South teams in here, and the Carolina Panthers we'll start with from the division. And I think the answer here is quite clear. It's picking the right quarterback, and I know that that's a very
CJ Stroud.
Right, it's a very obvious thing that they have to figure out, but they trade up to the number 1 pick, and for as excited as I'm sure there are people for CJ Stroud and Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, right? We have 4 quarterbacks that we think for sure are going to go in the first round. Let's have a cold dose of reality here. They're not all going to be good NFL starting quarterbacks. They're not, right? Some of them are really not going to be good players. Go back to 2018, and there was this, well, is this 1983 reincarnate? Well, 5 years later, those quarterbacks were Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Rosen.
Got 2 good ones.
You have 2 good ones. That's what you have. 3 of them are not good enough to be starters. And that's probably going to be true. There might only be 1 or 2 of these that are going to be good players. And for Carolina, they can't miss on this pick. They cannot miss on this pick. And so to me, I know we could talk about some of the areas of the roster that can use some help, but it really, their biggest thing they got to figure out is this quarterback and picking the right one, and they have their choice of the litter.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers. To me, it's offensive tackle.
This is also an unserious group.
Donovan Smith no longer part of the mix. Brandon Walton, your starter? We can't do that, right? We can't. That's not going to give yourself a chance on offense, especially when you're going to play some younger guards. Luke Gadecki probably the starter next to that player. You gotta find a left tackle here.
So you got Baker Mayfield at quarterback playing behind an offensive line currently of Brandon Walton, Luke Gadecki, Ryan Jensenson, Nick Leverett, and Tristan Wirfs.
You got 2 starters. And some hopeful guards and nothing at left tackle.
2 starting caliber players.
Good starters. Jensen and Wirfs are good starters.
Wirfs is an elite football player, and Ryan Jensen is probably one of the 5 best centers in football.
Yeah.
So you've got pillars. You've got 2 pillars. But everything else up front, Gadecki struggled last year. I know the coaching staff has liked Nick Leverett. That's fine. Oh, by the way, scheme change, right? Dave Canales coming in.
Mm-hmm.
The left tackle, the other 5 tackles on the roster between Walton, Skewell, Dylan Cook, Grant Hermans, and Michael Neese is just... You could take probably every one of those 5 players and try to put them... How many NFL teams could you try to put them on the roster and they would not make the roster?
No, not many. Yeah. They don't have a lot of chances out there.
So it's pretty incredible that that's 5 out of 6 of your offensive tackles. And heaven forbid if something were to happen to Tristan Wirfs.
Right.
Tackle. Period. That's it.
Falcons, Saints, Rams, 49ers, Seahawks, Cardinals. We're talking about those teams right after a quick break.
Okay, Joe. We are finishing the second half of the AFC South. We're going to start with the Atlanta Falcons. I believe it is my turn to go, if that's correct.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I like a lot. I should probably start with this. I like a lot of what the Falcons have done this offseason. Agreeing to terms this morning with Calais Campbell.
Yep.
To be added to that line. Listen to this, dude. Grady Jarrett, David Ayumeta, Calais Campbell. The Falcons, for the first time in a generation, do not have Grady Jarrett on an island all by himself with talent on the defensive front. Even a more unlikely upset than us talking at the beginning of the show in 2023 about me having good hair. Incredible upset. Bravo, well done. And I'm hoping Eddie Goldman can bounce back too. So once upon a time, not that long ago, he was a very good player. I wanted to put quarterback because third round pick in Ritter, and they signed Heineke, so I get it. This is wide receiver. I get this is an offense that's going to run the ball. And I know you signed Mac Hollins, who kind of absorbed the wide receiver 2 role last year for the Raiders and was effective the year prior in a complementary role for the Dolphins. But he's your wide receiver 2 behind Drake London. And then you got Scotty Miller, Frank Darby, Jared Bernhardt, Josh Ali, and Rashawn Henry. Let's get some bodies here. Let's beef this up a little bit. Even if they're not high volume players, let's give ourselves a stronger wide receiver room because you are one injury away from really having some limitations on the outside.
Hear you. I would think a lot about Kyle Pitts playing as a true receiver and Jonnu Smith as your tight end, which maybe looks a little better, but they definitely need some help there. I actually have edge rusher written down. The Falcons have 39 sacks over the past 2 seasons. The next worst in the NFL is the Raiders with 62. Okay, I mean this has just been an awful situation in terms of edge rusher. And so I know they got some young players in D'Angelo Malone and Arnold Ebiketie, who they took day 2 last year. You're looking for them to grow. You've got Lorenzo Carter. But to me, Atlanta, with their very high draft pick, getting one of these edge rushers that have top tier traits that are top 10 worthy, I think would really put this front together in a way that we haven't seen. They've already made strides. Let's get this edge piece figured out.
How is this any different than what I said with Detroit?
Wait, are you serious?
Got Calais Campbell.
Calais Campbell's more of a down lineman. Like, he's not going to win off the edge.
Arnold Ebiketie.
Wait.
Who is good?
Hutchinson, Houston, Aquara, Harris?
You can stop at Hutchinson.
Pascal?
Which is generally the point that I was making.
Where does Lorenzo Carter fit into that? He's like the 3rd guy in Detroit.
Behind who?
Hutchinson and...
Behind who else? You pick one.
I think you can make a case for a number of players.
No, I would say Hutchinson's the best, comfortably the best, by far the best. But I think the gaggle amongst the rest of the guys is all very comparable.
Okay.
Would you rather have James Houston or Arnold Ebiketie?
It's a good question.
Oh, no, it's not. It's Ebiketie.
Oh, I don't know, man. James Houston looked so good last year.
Sure, good. Yeah. On the
He's got way more moves than Arnold Ebiketie.
Okay, let's go. Talk about the Saints next. The New Orleans Saints are another team that I think you can point to the edge group and feel as though there's an upgrade opportunity. Now, they signed Teno Passigno. They have Carl Granderson. They have a former first-round pick in Peyton Turner, all to complement your aging star in Cameron Jordan. But I look at the starters across the board in New Orleans, and they look pretty darn good. And the one that stands out to me as an upgrade opportunity, and I understand he's developed into a very nice NFL player, is Carl Granderson. I think that edge group is the biggest position group for an upgrade opportunity for the Saints.
I think it's a good answer. I'm going to go with the interior, where Colin Saunders and Nathan Shepard are your...
Colin Saunders or Nathan Shepard will be...
I like both of those players as my 3rd defensive tackle. But these are your DT1 and DT2.
Saunders is ready for a jump. Getting out of KC. He's ready for a jump. He got a deal, too.
What, 3 years, 12 or something like that?
Yeah, they paid him a pretty good amount of money.
I'm hopeful for those guys, but they're not stopping me from trying to upgrade here, and you don't really have much depth. I mean, Prince Amelia, who's been on the Bills practice squad for the last 2 years,
Yeah.
and Malcolm Roach.
They don't have depth anywhere, though.
Right. 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 So.
Quarterback. They got depth at quarterback. That's it.
Right. Oddly, that's where and of course, Taysom Hill is on the roster.
Oh, yeah. They're QB3.
Yeah.
Well, they got depth at running back now that they got Jamal Williams, too. Is Jamal Williams your favorite NFL player that's not a Buffalo Bill?
Man, I haven't thought about that in a long time. I still love DK Metcalf.
I love DK, too. Speaking of the Seattle Seahawks, we're getting ready to go to the NFC West here to finish this up.
Cam Hayward? I don't know.
What do you have for the... let's do the LA Rams. I was going to ask, what do you have, but I'm starting. Forgive me for taking the low-hanging fruit, but I wrote down everything.
Wish you could see my notes because mine says everything.
Does it really?
It says everything. Is anything solid on this roster?
What is happening?
There is nothing solid on that. The best thing they have going is wide receiver, right?
No.
In relation.
Okay, you have a player. It's just like Aaron Donald. Like you have Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald.
But like Van Jefferson, I don't know. For their roster, I thought it was like the best thing they had was wide receiver.
That's probably accurate.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not praising it.
Dude,
it's still bad.
This is unbelievable to filter through. If you're listening, just take a minute and understand. We understand that the Rams won the Super Bowl and that was the objective, and like you did the thing. It's great. And then you went for it for another year. We weren't sure if McVay was going to retire, and we weren't sure if Donald was going to retire, and they all came back, and you said, oh, yeah, let's spend a bunch more money. And you spent it on all the wrong players. And Bobby Wagner's gone after a year. Allen Robinson probably would be gone if you had any feasible chance to get rid of his contract, but it's too limiting. There was like Matthew Stafford retirement questions, Matthew Stafford trade rumors. Jalen Ramsey's been dealt for a bag of peanuts. The post-mortem here is pretty incredible to sit here and look at. What do you think this team's record is? What's sad is this isn't even the worst roster in the West.
No, we'll get there. The worst roster in the league we'll get there.
So I have everything down for the Rams.
Okay, I have everything, and so here's where I'll laser in on something.
Players.
When you need everything, the most important thing to me becomes the trenches, and I think the O-line has more redeeming players than the D-line, so I think D-line. But my God, you could make a case for anything.
That's fair. So your redeeming players on the O-line were acknowledging Havenstein,
Brian Allen.
Bruss is a third-round pick this past year, had some nice college tape. What are we doing with Joe Noteboom? They gave him They gave him like 3 for $40, I think is what they paid him.
Paying him.
He was he was promising until he got paid.
Yeah. Well, and Tremaine Ingram, Coleman, Shelton, they've played. I just thought there was more redeeming.
Did they had? They had somebody else that every week I looked and he was in the starting 5. I'm like, dude, this is like not an NFL roster caliber player. And I understand they got walloped by injuries last year. So I get it.
But I mean, it's Aaron Donald, and it's Jonah Williams, Marquise Copeland. What is this deal?
Keep going. Hey, how about Laryl Murchison?
Right. Another one of the Titans' recent draft picks that they cut.
Why? Why you take shots at the Titans like that?
Because I've never seen it. We're gonna do a John Robinson episode at some point.
Okay.
And the whiffs are just unreal. And how quickly they cut draft picks. Insane.
Shout out Isaiah Wilson.
Right. That's not even like.
It's not even the worst one.
That's not even the headliner of the conversation.
They got a conditional 7 for him when they traded
Unreal.
him, so.
Yeah, I'm sure the conditions weren't met. He was on the team for 3 days.
He didn't show up for his physical.
Right. Yeah. There you go. That's your Dree Archer. Is Isaiah Wilson.
All right, let's get all the rails here. We got three teams to go.
Yes.
San Francisco 49ers next.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested what direction you went here. I chose to go corner. Did you go corner?
I didn't, but it's a fine answer.
Like, Charvarius Ward's a good player. You got Miles Hartsfield in from Carolina's a new addition. Lenore, Ambry Thomas. These are young players. I think they were both a part of the 21 class. But if you have an opportunity, and they won't because they don't pick in the top 100, well, they might with the depth of this corner class. If you had the chance to swing the bat again, corner would be a group that I would really be a fan of seeing the 49ers go after to give more fortifications to the back end, specifically on the outside.
Yeah, I thought about corner, settled on right tackle. McGlinchey leaves, and right now you're penciling in Colton McKivitz to play next to Spencer Burford on the right side of your offensive line.
Yeah.
With quarterback concerns, right? Like, didn't they come out of the league meetings and say there's like a possibility Sam Darnold's the week 1 starter here for this team?
Yeah, I think they said six to 8 months, I think, for Purdy.
Right.
And obviously Trey Lance has his own recovery that he's going through, so it's tough.
You're going to lean on McCaffrey. I don't know. I'd want to make sure that right side was better, especially at right tackle.
The Seattle Seahawks, I have wide receiver 3.
Man, that was my alternate pick.
They got studs on the outside, Metcalf, Lockett. Really like the infrastructure and what they've built up. I like what they've brought back on this defense, bringing Bobby Wagner back, getting Jamal Adams back healthy. They have Ryan Neal back as an RFA as well. Adding Draymond Jones to the defensive front, bringing Jerron Reed back. I mean, they've done a really nice job, I think, on the defensive line to address the pressing issues. And they have a lot of young players on the offensive line. You got Geno Smith locked back in. Kenneth Walker was a rookie last year. So that D. Eskridge spot looms as something that I think can unlock a lot more for that Seattle offense.
Yeah, I had wide receiver 3 written down for consideration. Even center is a potential spot with Evan Brown coming on a low-cost 1-year deal from Detroit. Been a flashy player, but don't exactly know what you have there. But to me, it's interior defensive line. I like Jerron Reed coming back, but after him, it's Brian Moan and Gerard Hewitt. That's all you have.
Player.
I know you like him, but like that, you need more here. You need some players that
you need bodies like the Detroit pass rush room, right? You just need bodies.
Lord. You have 3 players that are interior defensive linemen on your roster, so we got some work to do here.
The Arizona Cardinals.
Speaking of work to do,
what is happening?
It's the worst.
What is happening in Phoenix?
Terribad roster.
Tempe, wherever specifically they are.
Arizona.
Oh, by the way, DeAndre Hopkins is going to get traded as well.
At some point. I think it'll happen on draft day.
It'll probably happen on day 2. Probably before the start of the round, would be my guess. Friday during the day. After the dust is settled of the first round and teams that are maybe wide receiver hungry get an idea on who fell. And if they got somebody or not. I mean, you got Yalta Froholt starting at center right now. Corey Clements, your backup running back. James Conner, I didn't think looked particularly good last year. They got McBride and Ertz at tight end, though. So they're good there. We can confidently cross that off the list. Ledbetter, Fotu, Rashard Lawrence, LJ Collier, Manny Jones, Kevin Strong, Eric Banks. It's your defensive linemen. Those are all the defensive linemen on the team. I don't know that I'd necessarily blame you for not signing Zach Allen back on a deal when he got 15 per.
No, and I would not have I wouldn't have offered him half of that.
I probably would have been 7, 8. So I'd have been right in the strike zone for half. He had a nice year last year. But he didn't have that nice year last year.
It's the worst defensive personnel in the league.
Yeah, this is going to be a nightmare season for the Cardinals.
You think Hop becomes the first Bill to wear number 0?
Jeez. I hope so. I hope for you that he does.
We'll see.
I hope for you that he does.
Is he going to play all the games and all that?
Who knows? Any parting thoughts? Is that it?
I didn't really say much about that. My notes literally say Cardinals defense, worst personnel in the league. Everything. You need everything. The Rams and Cardinals, like, what a gift for Seattle. What a gift.
As the team that's trying to chase down San Francisco and the team that are you going to be the 5 seed just based off of playing those two teams twice?
If you don't win the division, you feel like the 4 and 5 is some combination of Seattle and San Francisco.
I meant the 5. Yeah. Or the 4. I meant the 4. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll the NFC South winner might not have so great of a record, I don't know, man. You got to be so excited if you're like a fan of an okay team in one of those divisions. Like, you got a chance, man, to host a playoff game.
Yeah. Safe to say the Cardinals probably don't have a chance to host a playoff game. That's going to do it for us here today on the show. The NFC post first wave of free agency biggest remaining needs is in the books. We hope you enjoyed. You can find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes on YouTube or wherever you listen to all of your favorite podcasts. Appreciate you guys carving time out of your day. Your teams every day here on the Locked On Network, so keep it plugged in every day. Make Locked On NFL your second listen of the day today. Go to Locked On Dolphins, go to Locked On Bills. Check out all your favorite shows with all your favorite hosts. We got a ton of great talent here on the network, which we are very thankful and happy to be a part of. So make it a great rest of your Wednesday. I'll be back to talk with you all again tomorrow. Peace.